My name is Michael Harlan. I served with the U.S. Forest Service for over 12 years. 5 of those years were spent patrolling deep wilderness along the Appalachian Trail, mostly between Tennessee and North Carolina. I know those ridgelines better than my own street back home. Or at least, I thought I did. This happened in October of 2013. I'd volunteered for a 10-day solo patrol, covering just under 30 miles of remote backcountry between Fontana Dam and Mount Camerer. That stretch isn't crowded, especially off-season. Mid-October, once the last of the foliage hunters disappear, it's quiet. Real quiet. The kind of quiet you have to grow into. For most folks, it's unsettling, being out there with no cell reception, no headlights on the horizon, no other footsteps except your own. But for rangers like me, it's the kind of silence we look forward to. You hear more when the world stops talking. I'd been going through some personal things, a divorce that felt like an amputation. My father had passed 6 months before, and we hadn't spoken in years. So I told myself this stretch would be good. 10 days, just me, the trees, the wind, the old trail I knew like the back of my hand. It was supposed to help me get right. But by the second night, I had this feeling that something was off. Not wrong exactly, just off. I set up my tent near Eagle Creek that second evening. It's a flat, grassy patch near a bend in the trail, a place I'd used dozens of times before. But the forest around me felt tighter. The tree line looked the same, the shadows fell where they should, but the space felt watched. And it wasn't nerves. I've slept through snow squalls, bear tracks outside the tent, even a mountain lion once. But this was different. I wrote in my log that night. I always kept a field book. Quote, campsite clear, wind light, no sign of human tracks, but I keep turning around, like someone's behind me, unsettling. Still, I chalked it up to the isolation, zipped up the tent, and tried to sleep. Sometime just before 2 a.m., I woke up cold. I mean freezing. I checked the thermometer on my zipper. It read 39 degrees. Not warm, but not cold enough to explain why my breath was fogging the tent from the inside like I'd stepped into a meat locker. Then I heard it. Leaves, moving just beyond the tent. Not crunching, more like brushing. A drag, like something walking without lifting its feet. It circled the tent once, then again, then stopped. Silence. And then, just inches from the tent fabric, I heard it, a whisper. My name, Michael. It wasn't the wind, it wasn't an echo, it was a voice. Low, male, right at my ear, like someone had crouched down and pressed their lips to the nylon. I froze. Couldn't move, couldn't even breathe right. I wanted to grab the flashlight, unzip the tent, until dawn. And when I finally stepped out, there were no tracks, no marks, no broken branches, nothing. I told myself it was the wind, a dream, stress. But the truth was, I'd never heard my name said like that before. It was like someone was saying it who shouldn't have known it. That morning I skipped breakfast, packed up and pushed hard to the next checkpoint, 12 miles out. I didn't see anyone, not a soul, and I didn't hear the whisper again that day. But I started noticing things, little changes. Blazes on trees I didn't remember painting, pile formations in the woods, branches stacked into pyramids, birds avoiding certain groves, like invisible fences were keeping them out. That third night, I made camp off-trail near an old shelter no longer in use. I didn't want to, but daylight was slipping, and my legs were done. That's when the dreams started. I saw myself walking, but I wasn't me. I was looking at myself, from the trees, and in the dream, I was whispering my own name. When I woke up, my boots were missing from the vestibule. I found them an hour later, 100 yards off the trail, tucked neatly beneath a tree, laces crossed over like hands folded in prayer. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, fire burning low, just listening. I kept hearing a faint clicking sound, like tongue against teeth. Then the whisper came again. Michael. But this time, it didn't stop. It kept repeating, like someone trying to remember how to say it, like it liked the way it sounded. Michael. Michael. That's when I broke. I grabbed my gear, half-packed, didn't even check the compass. I just moved. I bushwhacked north toward a fire access road I'd seen on the map the week before. I slipped on the ridge and sliced my leg. Still have the scar. But the whisper never followed me beyond the tree line. It stayed in the woods. And I think it was waiting for me to say its name back. I never told anyone the full story, just said I had a medical issue and cut the patrol short. But here's the part that still gets me. Months later, I was called to assist in a missing persons case in that same region. A thru hiker, young guy, trail named Thistle, disappeared around the same section. When they found his pack, it was unzipped, food still sealed, tent untouched, and next to his map, someone had written a name in the margin, my name, in handwriting that wasn't his, just 3 letters, over and over again. Michael, Michael, Michael. I haven't gone back since. Some things in those woods aren't meant to be understood. And if you hear your name when you're alone out there, don't answer. Just keep walking. Subscribe to MindFuel. If you made it this far, you're already different from most. Every week, we bring you verified psychological horror stories based on ranger logs, FBI documents. People always ask why I did it alone. They say it like I had a choice. I didn't wake up one morning and think, you know what would be great? 2 weeks in total isolation, with nothing but trees and silence for company. I went out there because I had to. At the time, I wasn't fit to be around people. My marriage had collapsed under the weight of everything I couldn't say out loud. I'd come back from deployment in Iraq with more baggage than I walked in with. Couldn't sleep through the night, couldn't sit in a restaurant without memorizing the exits. I had a temper that didn't belong in civilian life. And after a final argument in the middle of our kitchen, I walked out. I drove 6 hours to the ranger station and volunteered for a deep woods patrol. They assigned me to one of the loneliest stretches of trail in the Smokies. No radio towers, no towns, just forest, elevation, and distance. It was exactly what I wanted, or maybe what something wanted me to want. The first 2 days felt like any other patrol. I clocked my miles, filled out my field book, took photos of downed trees and trail washouts, noted a few bear tracks near Cosby Knob. Nothing unusual, but the quiet got to me. Not just the absence of human sound, but the timing of the silence. Every afternoon around 5:47, on the dot, the forest would go completely still. The birds would stop. Crickets, gone. No squirrels, no wind, nothing. Just this sudden hush, like the whole mountain held its breath. The first time it happened, I checked my watch, thought maybe a storm was coming, but the sky stayed clear. The air was heavy in a way I can't explain, like it was filled with something you couldn't see. Then the sounds would return, all at once. I noticed it again on day 2, then day 3, always the same time. 5:47. It didn't make sense, but I wasn't ready to start inventing ghosts. That evening, somewhere past Peck's Corner, I saw someone coming down the trail. Now that's rare, especially in that part of the park, and especially in October. He was an older guy, maybe late 50s, thin, beard like steel wool, eyes hidden behind scratched sunglasses. He had that look that long-haul hikers get, sunburned, hollowed out, leathery like driftwood. We passed each other near a ridge cut, and I gave the usual nod. "You doing the full loop?" I asked. He just stared at me for a second too long. Then he said, "If you hear it call your name, don't answer back." That's all he said. Then he kept walking. Didn't ask for food, didn't ask for my name, didn't explain what it was. Just kept walking, like the words had been burning in his mouth for days. I turned and watched him go. He didn't stop. I thought maybe he was a vet, maybe like me. Maybe he had demons he carried in his pack, just like I did. Still, bend. The birds stopped again. I checked my watch. 5:47. I set up camp that night near an old shelter built in the 40s, long since retired. There was no roof, just 4 beams and a crumbled stone base, but I didn't care. I was tired and sore and had a fresh blister I didn't want to deal with in the dark. I built a small fire, ate cold jerky, and every so often I looked up at the trail, waiting to see if that man came back. He didn't, but someone, or something, stood there. Just after sunset, I saw a shape, tall, still, right in the middle of the path. Too dark to see a face, too far for detail, but I knew it was watching me. I stood up, waved my flashlight. Nothing. When the beam hit that spot, the figure was gone. I walked out to the trail with my headlamp, circled the area. No footprints, just pine needles and silence. I tried to sleep, but I kept hearing footsteps up the trail. Then again, closer, but never all the way to my camp, as if it wanted me to know it was there, as if it wanted me to listen. That's when I remembered what the man said. If you hear it call your name. I stared up at the trees all night, waiting, but it didn't come yet. Not that night. Subscribe to MindFuel. You've only heard the first part of Michael's patrol. The silence is spreading. The voices are learning. In the next chapter, the whisper comes closer. If you're still here, you're one of us. Hit subscribe. The forest remembers, and soon it may call your name too. By day 4, something in me had shifted. I was moving faster than my plan, skipping breaks, not taking time to enjoy the view, just pushing forward like I was trying to outrun something I couldn't name. I told myself it was just the weather, the quiet, the strange warning from the man on the trail, but I'd started to feel followed. Not watched, followed. You can tell the difference. When something watches you, there's a direction, an angle to the feeling. You look toward it. But when you're being followed, it's different. You feel it between your shoulder blades, in the gap between footsteps that don't match your own. Just past Snake Den Ridge, I made it to a shelter I'd been planning to skip. An old lean-to built during one of the CCC projects back in the 30s. It wasn't listed as active. Most maps just marked it as historic structure, no longer recommended for overnight use. I only stopped because I saw the rain clouds stacking fast over the next ridge. I figured I'd eat there, wait out the storm, maybe push a few more miles before nightfall. But the moment I stepped under that sagging wooden roof, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. The walls were covered, every beam, every flat surface, every inch of the old interior, with carvings. Hundreds of them. Names, initials, but also things I didn't recognize. Symbols scratched deep into the wood grain, some geometric, some looping, some that looked almost tribal. Then there were the figures. Tall, stick-thin, arms too long. No faces, just hollow ovals for heads, etched again and again in different hands. Some were barely sketched. Others were dug so deep the bark beneath the wood showed through. I ran my fingers across one, and it flaked into dust, like it had been there for decades. But the thing was, some looked new. Fresh scratches, no dust, the wood still pale underneath. And every one of those fresh figures was facing the door. That's when I found the hiker logbook. Every shelter along the trail has one. Just a cheap notebook where hikers leave dates, trail names, jokes, notes for others. Usually it's filled with harmless stuff. Bad poems, food cravings, trail gossip. But not this one. The pages had been torn in half. The first few were fine. Entries from 2011, 2012, nothing strange. Then I reached the back third. The handwriting changed. No trail names, no jokes, just one sentence, over and over. It keeps following me. 27 times, same sentence, each one shakier than the last, until the ink trailed off the page like the person writing had stopped mid-sentence, or been stopped. I don't scare easy, but I'll tell you the truth. I packed my things and moved them just outside the shelter. I still needed the roof if the rain came, but I didn't. Woods were leaning in. I tried to focus on the fire, on the normal sounds, but around midnight, I started hearing something, scratching. Light at first, like claws on bark, then heavier, closer. At first I thought it was a raccoon or a possum, maybe even a bear nosing through brush, but it didn't move like an animal. It didn't sniff, didn't grunt, didn't pace. Just scratched, deliberate, slow, long strokes like nails across a chalkboard. I shined my light, but saw nothing. Then the sounds changed. From scratching to something else. A call. At first it sounded like a fox, high-pitched, raspy. But then it shifted, got lower, like a person trying to imitate a fox. Too human, too wrong. And then I heard a baby crying. Just once, one long wail, echoing out from behind the shelter. I stood there, frozen. No one brings infants into this part of the trail. There was no chance it was real, and yet my body reacted like it was. I took 2 steps toward the sound before stopping myself. It went quiet, and in that silence, I heard one more sound. Low, male, right behind me. Just one word. Michael. I didn't turn around. I didn't look. I walked back to the fire and sat down like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep. I didn't breathe right until the sun came up. When I finally looked inside the shelter again, there were more carvings. 6 new figures, tall, thin, and all of them facing me. Subscribe to MindFuel. We don't create horror, we uncover it. The thing that knocked back. The night Michael tests if the whisper is real. And something answers. Subscribe to stay with the story. And remember, the forest forgets no one. By the time I left the shelter, I no longer believed I was alone out there. I didn't have a theory. I didn't have a name for what was happening. But the woods had stopped feeling like woods, and I had stopped feeling like myself. I didn't eat breakfast, didn't boil coffee, just packed and moved, like a man running late for something he didn't agree to. The carvings haunted me. But it was the baby that stayed with me more than anything. That sound, it wasn't a recording. It wasn't wind through trees. It was imitated. The way a child might try to mimic a voice on TV. The way a predator might mimic a prey's call to draw something in. And whatever it was, it knew my name. That next day was cold and clear. No wind, no clouds, no wildlife. I passed deer prints in the mud, but they were days old. No birds in the canopy. Nothing in the understory. That's when I started noticing the shadows. Something was pacing me. Not beside me, not behind me, but always just far enough into the woods that I couldn't quite see it, only feel it. When I stopped to tie my boots, the feeling stopped too. When I walked again, it picked up. It kept perfect distance. I called out once. "Forest Service, you need assistance?" No answer. Just the long, low creak of something moving in the trees. I had a small trail cam in my pack, motion activated, meant for recording wildlife, but I figured it might give me something concrete to look at. Something I could hold up and say, "See, I'm not losing it." That night, I set camp at the base of a bluff. One way in, one way out. I placed the camera on a split birch, aimed toward camp, with a clear view of the approach. I also rigged a noise trap, a crude one, fishing line across the main trail, tied to an old tin mug and a few pebbles. If anything moved through, I'd hear it. I didn't sleep, not because I wasn't tired, but because I couldn't afford to close my eyes. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. The cup rattled, just once. Not a hard pull, not a stumble, just touched. I got up slowly, grabbed my flashlight, moved in a crouch toward the trail. Nothing. no movement, but the line was snapped. Clean. Not frayed. Snapped, like wire cutters had gone through it. I turned the flashlight to the base of the birch tree, where I'd mounted the trail cam. It was still there. The red light blinked, still recording. I couldn't watch the footage until morning. I didn't have the gear to preview it in the field, but I left the camera running, just in case. The next morning, the forest was wet with dew. My tarp had been pulled 3 feet to the left. My boots, again, moved. They were sitting in the exact center of camp, side by side, laces knotted together. And something was carved into the dirt in front of me. And then, they just stopped. Not turned around, not looped back. They just ended, like the person wearing them had vanished mid-step. I dug out the trail cam that afternoon when I found a clearing with enough sunlight to charge my reader. I fast-forwarded through hours of nothing. Me pacing, me sitting, fire dying. Then, at 2:03 a.m., the camera caught something. Just movement at first, then a figure, far back in the frame, almost lost in shadow, crouched low, too long. Arms that hung below the knees, the legs bent the wrong way. The shape didn't move like a person. And the face, if you could call it that, was blank. Just smooth flesh, like wax melting under heat. And in one frame, just one, it was standing upright, facing the camera, directly at it. My eyes. It had no mouth, no eyes, no nose, just a vaguely human shape where a person should have been. Then it dropped out of view like a puppet with cut strings, and the camera glitched, pixelated static, 3 full minutes of it. Then silence. I packed up. I left. I didn't follow the trail anymore. I just moved, northeast, uphill, toward the old ranger tower near Mount Sterling. I figured if I could get to elevation, I could radio out. But the whispering started again. Not loud, not often, just enough. Enough to let me know it hadn't lost me. It was still there. And now, it was wearing my steps. Subscribe to MindFuel. The trail's not over. In the next chapter, Michael finds the fire tower, and the door is open. Whatever's been watching is waiting. Subscribe to MindFuel for real psychological horror drawn from ranger reports, missing persons files, and backcountry testimony. Every tree has eyes. Every path remembers your name. The 4th night was the worst. Not because it got closer, but because it got smarter. That morning, I stopped being sure where I was. I had the maps, I had the compass, but the trail no longer made sense. A switchback I'd walked a dozen times before now led to a clearing I'd never seen. Trees that should have been hemlock were pine. A boulder I used as a trail marker was just gone. It wasn't like getting lost. It was like the trail itself had shifted behind me. I walked for hours without seeing a blaze, and when I finally found one, painted clean and white on the trunk of an oak, it was upside down. That's when I stopped pretending I was alone. I took shelter under a rock overhang, windless, cold. I sat there until dusk. That's when the whisper came again. But this time, it wasn't just my name. This time, it said it like he used to. "Mike, you out there?" My brother's voice. Daniel, dead 3 years. Same rhythm, same drawl, same way he used to call me when we were kids playing flashlight tag in the woods behind our house. "Mike, come on, man. It's late." My throat closed up. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just listened, heart pounding against my ribs, like it wanted to run without me. And the voice kept coming. Closer. "Mike, where'd you go?" Then, so close it felt like someone was kneeling behind me. "Don't you miss me?" I turned. Nothing. Just shadows pooling under stone and trees leaning too far forward, like they were waiting to fall. My hands were shaking. I reached for my phone, not for signal. I knew I wouldn't get that. but to check the time. That's when I noticed it was on. Screen lit. Video recording. I didn't start it. I hadn't touched it since day 2. But there it was. A file, timestamped that morning, 10 seconds long. I pressed play. The footage was shaky, pointed at my back. I was walking, alone. Trees ahead. My gait unmistakable. But the camera was behind me, following. Smooth, silent, as if floating. I paused it halfway through, listened. There was no wind, but just under the mic static, something breathing, slow, wet. And then, faint, just before the clip ended, my voice. But not me. Michael, whispered, but not whispered. Imitated, like someone wearing my voice like a coat that didn't fit. I dropped the phone. It hit stone, cracked, didn't matter. It had already said what it needed to. That night, I didn't build a fire. I wanted no light. I wanted whatever was watching to wonder if I'd moved on. I opened my journal and wrote a letter to my sister. I kept it simple. Told her where I thought I was, slipped it inside my inner pack pocket, where the ID tags go if someone has to come looking. And then I sat, waiting, listening. Sometime after midnight, I heard it again, my name. But this time, it laughed after. A low, garbled sound, like someone trying to remember how to laugh. It wasn't my brother anymore. It wasn't anything anymore. Just a mouthful of names it shouldn't know. Mine, yours. Maybe everyone who had ever passed through that part of the mountain, like it was collecting us, one voice at a time. Subscribe to MindFuel. The deeper Michael goes, the closer it gets. In the next chapter, the tower and the knock that shouldn't be heard. Subscribe to MindFuel for more true accounts twisted from Forest Service records, missing persons logs, and unreleased audio. The forest watches, it remembers names, and it has one left to speak. Yours. The rain came fast. I'd seen the sky darken before, heard thunder echo off the hollows, sure. But this storm, it rolled over the ridge like a fist. There wasn't time to prep shelter. The wind came first, cutting, furious, and then the rain came down like someone had slit open the sky. I knew where I should have been. There was a fire tower a few miles northeast, according to the last topo I'd studied. But I wasn't on that trail anymore. I don't know when I'd gone off course, but by then I'd stopped pretending I could find the map inside these woods. And the truth was, I wasn't sure the trail had ever been real at all. Then I saw it. Just through the curtain of rain, half hidden by undergrowth and trees grown too close to be natural. A lean-to. Small, wood-framed, moss growing up one side. No signpost, no trail markers. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't on my route. It wasn't on any map I'd ever studied. But the storm didn't care, and neither did I. I ducked under the awning, grateful just to be out of the downpour, and that's when I realized it was warm. Not dry, not insulated, warm. Like someone had just stepped out. The inside was swept clean, no mold, no damp rot. And at the center, on a flat stone between two low stumps, was food. Crackers, dried meat, a thermos sealed tight. I crouched. I didn't touch it, but it was fresh. And beside it, a candle, already lit. No wind to light it, no matches lying around. But the flame burned steady, like it had been waiting for me. I backed up, real slow, until I was standing in the middle of the lean-to. That's when I saw the carvings. At first, they blended into the grain, but once I saw one, I saw them all. Hundreds, deep gouges in the wall. Symbols I remembered from the shelter before, but this time, there were names. And not just first names, full names. Some I recognized, missing persons from park records. Hikers who vanished without a trace years ago. A few matched entries I'd read in trail registers a long time back. Names that hadn't signed out. I kept scanning, then I saw it. my name. Michael Jacob Harlan, carved clean, center of the back wall, just above the food, and next to it, a new line of text. Smaller, jagged, like someone had been in a hurry, or angry, or excited. It read, "He's almost ready." That's when I heard the footsteps outside. Not running, not shuffling, just pacing, back and forth across the mouth of the lean-to. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I didn't move. My breath stayed in my throat like it didn't want to be heard. The steps kept circling. They never came in. Whatever it was just standing there, watching. The storm roared, but the lean-to stayed. I grabbed my pack, didn't untie the flap, didn't check the straps. I just ran. I tore out of that lean-to like the trees were on fire behind me. And still, I didn't hear pursuit. I didn't hear branches breaking, but I felt it, like eyes sinking into my back, like whatever had written my name in that wall was smiling now. Not chasing, just letting me go, because it knew, one way or another, I would come back. Subscribe to MindFuel. Something knew Michael's name before he ever stepped into those woods, and now it's waiting. In the next chapter, the fire tower and the knock that comes from inside. Subscribe to MindFuel for true survival horror rooted in real wilderness reports, missing hiker cases, and unclassified ranger testimonies. This is more than a story. It's a warning. I don't remember how long I ran, not exactly, just that my legs kept moving long after my breath gave out. I couldn't feel my shoulders. My boots were soaked. I'd lost my sense of direction completely. But still, I kept running, because whatever that place was, it let me go, and I knew better than to ask why. Branches clawed at my face. Roots reached up like fingers trying to trip me, and the trail, if you could call it that, wasn't a trail anymore. It was just dark. Too dark. Even with morning coming, no light made it past the trees. That stretch of forest wasn't night. It was absence. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Only the rhythm of my breath and the low crunch of pine needles and moss beneath boots that no longer felt like mine. And then I heard the road, not saw, heard. A car engine in the distance, groaning uphill, tires on gravel. It was like hearing your own heartbeat after nearly drowning. That sound pulled me forward. I climbed a ridge too steep to be on my original route, hands clawing dirt and slick roots, and there it was, a logging road, half overgrown but real. And maybe a quarter mile up, the outpost. Old Forest Service cabin, tin roof, solar panel out front, and a bent radio antenna fixed to the chimney. A real place, man-made. I stumbled up to it and collapsed against the steps. I didn't remember knocking, but someone opened the door. A ranger, mid-50s, beard gone gray, faded green fleece with a patch I didn't recognize. No badge, no name tag, just eyes that said he'd been here long enough to stop asking questions. He looked at me for a long time before speaking. Not like I was a person, like he was counting the parts of me, making sure they were all still there. "You all right?" he asked. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Eventually, I forced the words. I told him about the lean-to, the food, the carvings, the candle. I told him about my name on the wall, the voice in the trees, the boot prints matching mine, and how none of it was on the map. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching the woods behind me. Then he said, quiet, flat, "We told you all to stay on the marked path." That was it. No disbelief, no follow-up. He opened the door the rest of the way and motioned for me to come in. I sat in the corner while he poured coffee into a dented metal mug, black, no cream, no sugar. I drank it anyway. I needed something in my hands to prove I was still here. When I finally spoke again, I asked if he'd ever seen it, the thing in the woods. He didn't answer. He just said, "It's been quiet for a while, but it's always hungry again by spring." Like everyone involved already knew the story, like they'd heard it before. Back home, I pulled up the topo again. I traced the section near the ridge, looked for that shelter, looked again. Nothing. No lean-to, no side trail, not even the clearing. It wasn't there. According to the official maps, it never existed. I still have the journal entry from that night. Still have the cracked phone even though the battery's dead and won't take a charge. The video, gone. File corrupted. Blank screen now. But I know what I saw. I don't go back into the woods anymore. Not deep, not alone, and never without a compass. Sometimes I still hear my name when I'm sleeping near open windows. Sometimes I dream about the candle, burning in a place that was warm when it shouldn't have been. Sometimes I think it let me go just long enough to tell this story, so someone else would follow. You've heard Michael's account, but this trail has taken more than just one hiker, and not all of them made it back to speak. In our next episode, we'll uncover pages from an old Forest Service incident report, one that was never meant to be opened. Subscribe to MindFuel now. What waits in the woods, waits patiently. It's been 6 months. I haven't spoken about it since the outpost. Not to family, not to friends. I deleted the journal, burned the paper copy. I told myself it was over. That whatever that thing was, it only lived up there, in the folds of the mountains, buried under pine and fog and places where no one goes anymore. I told myself I was safe now, back home, miles away, safe. But last night, I stepped out onto my back porch just to let the dog out, just a normal evening, cold, quiet. And there they were, in the frost, in the grass, the tracks, same size, same staggered pace, deep, like something heavy had walked right up to the sliding glass door and just stood there. My boots are in the garage. I haven't worn them since I left the trail. I made sure, but the prints, they're mine, identical, same wear on the outer tread, same slight drag on the right heel. I didn't sleep. I watched the trees all night. I watched the window. And just before dawn, I heard it, faint, like it was standing just behind the glass. "Michael." Same voice, low, close, like a breath against my ear. It's not finished. I thought it was a thing tied to that place. A spirit, a curse, a glitch in the map. Something born from grief and silence and too many nights alone. But now I know. It's not the trail. It's me. I brought it back. Michael. Subscribe to MindFuel. If you're still here, if you heard what I heard, you're already part of it. Don't look out your window tonight, and don't answer if it says your name. Subscribe to MindFuel for more true psychological horror rooted in real wilderness disappearances, park ranger accounts, and what the official reports won't publish. We're just getting started.